Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to MOS Live. Today, I have some Museum of Science educators who are going to teach you all about dinosaurs, and we're going to learn how to make some dinosaur origami. My name is Emily. My pronouns are she, her, and I'll be keeping an eye out for all of your questions today. Thank you for those of you who are tuning in on Facebook, but please note that we are not able to share your comments with our educators today. For everyone here on Zoom, just press the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit your questions. Don't forget to include your name and age if you'd like a shout out. If you'd like to see captions, you can click on the closed captions button at the bottom of your screen and select show captions. I would now like to invite our educators to come on screen, introduce themselves, and we'll get started.
Hi everyone, my name is Becca. My pronouns are she and her, and today I will be talking to you about dinosaurs. We're going to be talking about two different types of dinosaurs, and then we're going to also see a little bit of some origami, and we'll also take questions today. So I'll come back in a little bit to tell you about our first dinosaurs.
Thank you, Becca. And hello, everyone. My name is Emily. My pronouns are she and her, and I will be talking about origami during this program. So to get started, I want to start sharing my screen with you all so that you can follow along with what I'm talking about. So the very first thing that I want to mention, sorry, everyone, let's get this into full screen, is what exactly origami means. Now, in Japanese, ori means paper and kami means folding. So when you put those two things together, you get origami, which is the art of folding paper. And the whole goal of origami is to take a flat piece of paper and transform it into a sculpture or a work of art. Now, origami is most commonly associated with Japanese culture, and it's been done in Japan since the 1600s. So it's been around for a really long time. And the origami that we do today is still very, very similar to what they did even back in the 1600s, with some slight tweaks since origami has been influenced by other cultures over time. Now, science and origami actually go together more than you might think. So for example, math has greatly increased the complexity of origami over the years. And all of these particular works of art are very complicated to do. These are just done by folding paper. And it's possible because math has showed us or helped us realize exactly how we can fold that paper to make these amazingly complex works of art. Now, when it comes to science in particular, origami has helped us with technological advancements. So for example, when it comes to airbags, instead of just stuffing all of that fabric into a small space in your car, that airbag is actually folded. It's been inspired by origami, and it's folded into these cylinders so that they can take up as little space as possible. We call that volume. They can take up the smallest volume possible. And at the same time, when they are deployed, they do that more predictably when they're folded just like this. And that can help save someone's life even better. So that's really, really important. Now, solar panels have also been used, especially the ones that have been put onto spacecraft that go into space and start orbiting our planet. Again, those solar panels have to be made very, very small so that they can be sent into space in the first place. But then once they're deployed, this is, by the way, a prototype of one of those solar panels. Once they're deployed, they go from something really small, a small volume, and it starts to unfold. It starts to take up more and more space, and it gets nice and flat and big. And I just wanted to show you a really fun video of this in action. Let me find it. Here it is. So this is just a looping video of that same prototype of the solar panel. You can see how all of those little squares are kind of combined together so that they can be folded and compacted, but then kind of unfolded and spread out to take up a lot of space. And the final product looks something like this. That's what the space satellite would look like with that nice big solar panel on it. Now today what we're doing is folding dinosaurs, as promised. And in order to fold these dinosaurs, you need to start with a square piece of paper. So let me really quickly show you exactly how to fold a square piece of paper, because a lot of you might not already have square paper lying around. Instead, you can take a piece of printer paper or even a piece of notebook paper. It doesn't matter what size it is. And all you have to do is fold up one of the corners and line up these two edges with each other. You're also essentially folding one of these right angles in half so that it becomes a 45-degree angle instead. And you want to make sure everything is lined up as perfectly as possible, and then you will cut off this extra strip of paper. And then after that, you will officially have your square piece. So let me show you the first dinosaur that we're going to create. We like to nickname this guy the long-necked dinosaur. So at this point, Becca is going to come back on screen. She's going to teach us a little bit about these long-necked dinosaurs, and then we're going to start folding this one. And this is a really easy one for all of you to follow along with me. So get ready, get your square piece of paper ready, and take it away, Becca.
All right. Thanks, Emily. That was really cool to learn about that. So like we said, we're going to be talking about two different types of dinosaurs. The first group of dinosaurs is the long-necked, or the sauropod. That's another word that we use. And there's a few different types within that whole group of long-necked dinosaurs, but we're going to mainly refer to them as sauropods today. Now, the other dinosaur that we're going to talk about a little bit later is one specific species of dinosaur. So if you have a guess about what kind of dinosaur we might be talking about later, you can put that into our Q&A, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But for now, we're going to talk about the sauropods. So I'm going to share my screen as we get talking. They are really, really large dinosaurs, as you might imagine. And there were more than 20 species of them. And this also includes a different kind of group called the Titanosaur, which were also some pretty large ones that are very, very similar. So some of the most famous ones were the Brachiosaurus, the Argentinosaurus, and the Apatosaurus, among many others. Now, they were around from approximately 215 to about 66 million years ago. That is a long time for dinosaurs to be on land. Approximately 66 million years ago was the end of the Cretaceous period, when many of the much larger dinosaurs did in fact go extinct, and these guys were definitely part of that. Now, they were huge. In fact, they got to be one of the largest, if not all of them were the largest dinosaurs on land. In fact, some of them were getting up to 118 feet long, although there are longer ones expected to be found. It's just kind of based on the ones that we found so far. So we can see that Argentinosaur in the middle, that is kind of around these other large dinosaurs, but it's definitely much larger than them. And they were also incredibly heavy. In fact, just one of them could be anywhere from 20 to 80 tons in weight. Now, an elephant, for example, is approximately 2 to 7 tons in weight. So this guy wasn't just one elephant, but it could be anywhere from 4 to 16 elephants in weight, which is a lot of elephants. Now, let's talk about that neck. They're famous for that long neck. That's how they get that nickname. Well, it certainly was long. In fact, some necks were found to be over 49 feet in length, which was incredibly long. In fact, that's about 6 times taller than a giraffe neck, one of the largest necked animals that we have right now. And they had about 19 vertebrae in their neck, whereas giraffes, just like we do, have only 7. So they had a really long neck to get to the tops of trees, probably because they were herbivores. They ate a lot of plants, and so to get all of the plants possible, they had to reach places that other animals couldn't get to. So it's a really interesting way for them to go about getting food. Now, we also know a little bit, learned through many different models of using different ways of developing structures to show us what they looked like, including fossil structures, putting them together. But we've learned that they also have hollow bones with supporting structures, much like many other dinosaurs and also many other modern day birds. We also learned that they had air sacs inside their body, and that sort of helped to make them be a little bit lighter so that even though they were so large, they weren't incredibly heavy. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about with our sauropod friend. And if you do have any questions about sauropod, we'll get to those in a little bit. But first, we're going to fold the first dinosaur here.
Cool. Thank you, Becca. That was awesome. Now, before I fold the dinosaur, I do want to make a comment that I made a mistake earlier in my introduction, and I noticed that someone in the Q&A box actually corrected me. So I wanted to share that with all of you too. Give me a moment. Let's share my screen again so we can see that PowerPoint. I just fixed this, and it turns out that ori means folding, kami means paper. So put those together, and origami is about folding paper. Okay, very good. So again, thank you for sharing that correction with me. And now we can get to folding our first dinosaur. So we're going to fold a sauropod, just like one of the ones that Becca was showing us. And the first thing that we'll do is start with our square piece of paper. Next, we're going to just fold this whole thing in half, sort of diagonally. So you're going to lift up one corner and fold that over to the opposite corner. And make sure everything is lined up as well as you can. Make a nice crease down the center of the paper. And that's our first fold, really, really easy. Now, just because I'm right-handed, I'm going to lay the paper just like this. You can do it the opposite way if that's more comfortable for you. But at this point, we're going to take one of our 45-degree angle corners over here, and we're going to fold it over towards the one right angle or 90-degree angle. So let's do that. We're going to line up those bottom edges and make a nice fold about halfway between those two corners. Undo that fold. And now I'm going to draw a line on that fold just so we can remember where exactly it is. And this way you can also see better where it is. Now we're going to take this long edge here that is parallel with that fold that we just made, and we're going to line up this outer edge with that line and make a nice crease. These creases are very important whenever you're doing origami, so it's nice to make them as flat as possible. Okay, next up, we're going to do essentially the same fold. Take this outer edge and fold it towards that same line. And line up everything as well as you can. It definitely doesn't have to be perfect, especially if this is one of your first times folding origami. And this is a nice, easy one to begin with. Okay, cool. So now we have the long neck of our dinosaur, and this triangle at the top is going to become our head. So there's a line right here, and we're just going to fold this top triangular piece backwards over that line. And this is the head of our dinosaur. Now, in general, the sauropods didn't really have pointed noses like this one. So if you feel like doing something a little bit more complex, you can actually fold this pointed nose inside of the head and then flatten it down. And now we have a more blunt nose for our sauropod. It just looks slightly more realistic. Okay, so we're almost done. The next thing we're going to do is fold this same acute 45-degree angle towards that center line that we were using before. Here we go. And the last thing that we need to do is give this sauropod some legs. So you can either use a marker to create legs for this thing. Or you could even cut legs into the paper. That would be totally fine too. But I'm just going to draw 2 more lines, one across and then one down. And again, if you have a pair of scissors handy, you can cut 2 of those lines and then just fold that flap of paper backwards so that it's out of the way. And from here, you can even decorate your dinosaur if you feel like it. You can give it some cute spots on its back. You can get a little fancy with some hearts. You can even put a little face on your dinosaur. Make it nice and happy. You can do whatever you want with your dinosaur from here. But thank you all for folding along with me. Hopefully that was nice and fun and nice and easy for a lot of you beginners as well. So at this point, now that we've gone through the folding of our sauropod, Becca is going to come back and answer any of those dinosaur questions that you've asked so far.
All right, do we have any questions for our next part here?
Yes. Autumn, age 8, and Aiden, age 10, said that Tremor the Apatosaurus went on SpaceX this summer. Do you have any facts that you can tell us about that dinosaur?
Sure, I saw that too. As I was watching the astronauts head to the space station, I saw that dinosaur in their vehicle, which is really interesting to see. And you're absolutely right. It definitely was an Apatosaurus, and an Apatosaurus is one of those sauropods. It's really interesting because there's a little bit of controversy around the name Apatosaurus versus the name Brontosaurus, because originally a lot of dinosaurs were named Brontosaurus, but they renamed them to Apatosaurus. But more recent studies suggest that perhaps they are separate species. And so they might actually be Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus once again. Now, one of my favorite facts about the Brontosaurus is that its name is thunder lizard, coming from Greek, and the Apatosaurus, its name is deceptive or sneaky lizard, which, if you ask me, is a pretty poor name for a really large animal that probably couldn't sneak around very much at all. But definitely good point. I did enjoy watching the Apatosaurus in space.
Thank you. And we'll do one more before we move on to our next dino that some people have a guess for. Prisha, age 8, is asking, what does a long-necked dinosaur eat?
Oh, good question. Now, those guys were herbivores, which meant that they ate entirely just plants. Now, imagine if you're such a large animal, you're going to have to eat a lot of plants. And that's probably one of the reasons why they developed such a long neck, because they could reach the tops of trees. They could probably reach under trees. They could reach inside trees. They could get to pretty much any food that they needed as an herbivore, and they could eat as much of it as possible because, again, they were large and they needed probably a lot of food. So they ate a lot of plants. All right, so I think we're going to tell you how you might be able to see how the next dinosaur could be folded.
Exactly. Thank you, Becca. So the next dinosaur that we wanted to show you is a touch more complicated than the one that we just did. So instead of doing it right here live, we've actually taped a separate video that you can find hopefully later on today, or at least tomorrow. It'll be posted on Facebook and on YouTube. So definitely look for that in the future so that you can fold this other dinosaur on your own. So the other dinosaurs that we're making look like this. These guys walk on 2 legs as opposed to the sauropods who walk on 4 legs. These guys look like raptors, but they can really, represent any 2-legged dinosaur that you might have seen in your dinosaur books. And the video is about 8 minutes long. It's not a very complicated fold, but it's a touch harder than the one that we just did. So definitely keep that in mind. So now that you've seen what we're about to make, we're going to hear more about this type of dinosaur.
All right, thanks, Emily. So I wonder if any of you have any guesses out there. I know a few people put guesses in for what dinosaur we're doing next. Emily, what dinosaurs do people think?
Well, everyone kind of knew where you were going. Callan, Elizabeth, and Catherine and Adam all guessed our next dinosaur, which is the T-Rex.
Awesome. Very exciting. Great job, everyone. You are right. It is the T-Rex, which is probably the most infamous of all of the dinosaurs out there. The T-Rex, also known as Tyrannosaurus Rex, was large. It was definitely a carnivore. It was a big predator during its time. Now, the T-Rex, as we see here, was a two-legged dinosaur, as Emily was saying. It did have two little arms, but they didn't do all that much. And they were part of a group of dinosaurs called the Sauropods. Now, a fun thing about their name, Tyrannosaurus Rex, means king of the lizard creatures. So they were meant to be the top. They weren't the biggest, but they were ferocious. Now, they lived in a time that was only a very short period of time compared to the sauropods, which lived for many hundreds of millions of years. The T-Rex only lived for about 2 million years, from about 68 to about 66 million years ago. And they also did not make it through the end of the Cretaceous period with the massive extinction. They were pretty large. Here are a couple different groupings of them. These are different T-Rexes that have been discovered. And actually, our T-Rex model at the Museum of Science inside, if you've seen it, is modeled after T-Rex Stan, which I believe is the purple one. I can't quite see it over here. Yes, the purple one on this image. And they were also pretty large. They could get to be 12 to 20 feet long and about 5 to 8 tons. So 5 to 8 tons is not nearly as much as the sauropods. In fact, this is about maybe 1.5 elephants. So they were pretty light for being as large as they were. Well, that also is because they too had hollow bones. So that helped with staying nice and light. They were most definitely carnivores. In fact, we noticed those big teeth in that first image. They had extremely sharp, serrated teeth, kind of like knives. And they were 6 to 8 inches long. Those are pretty large teeth, and that's just the part that's above the gum line. They also were found to have one of the most powerful bites in every animal that we've ever seen. Scientists have measured bite force based on fossils that they found, and they think that it would have been one of the most powerful ones. So they were ferocious predators. Now, let's talk about their look. We've learned a lot about the T-Rex, and we've learned so much that we've kind of changed our idea on what we think they look like. Scientists are able to use models, and they're able to recreate what they think these dinosaurs look like. So this is the dinosaur that is outside the Museum of Science, and it's one of the older models. This is what we thought T-Rex originally looked like, standing upright a little bit more with its tail dragging on the ground and its little arms just not really doing much. This is more like what we think it looks like now. This is the one that's modeled after that dinosaur Stan. This is the dinosaur inside the Museum of Science, and it looks a little bit more horizontal. It has its tail out behind it for balance. Its little arms still not doing very much. That's okay. They don't need to do much if you have a giant bite like the T-Rex does. And so we've learned a lot more about what they look like. But even this one is still not completely accurate right now, because just very, very recently, we've learned that they probably had feathers. And this is an artist rendition of what they may have actually looked like with those feathers on them. And so we've been able to find fossilized pieces of skin, fossilized feathers on quite a few different dinosaurs. So scientists now believe that quite a few, including the T-Rex, had feathers. So as we continue to learn more and to have more models for what the animals actually look like, our perspective of dinosaurs as a whole, and even the T-Rex in general, may change. So with that, we're going to open it back up to a few more questions with our last remaining minutes and see what we have.
Great, thank you. So first, we have a couple of questions from Kenzie and Maki, both asking if dinosaurs are related to birds.
Yeah, that's a great question. And they are. In fact, birds can sometimes be classified as dinosaurs because during the end of the Cretaceous period, about 66 million years ago, when there is a massive extinction because of a meteor or an asteroid hitting the Earth and causing many of the large species to die out because they couldn't find enough food. The smaller species, the smaller, more bird-like dinosaurs, the ones that were maybe more raptor-like on two legs, the theropods, but the smaller ones, they actually survived because they could find food. And they eventually went on to evolve to become modern-day birds over many, many millions and millions of years. But that's why scientists are interested in learning more about feathers from the dinosaurs too, because many of those dinosaurs that did make it all the way to bird time probably carried those feathers with them. So feathers kind of date all the way back to birds. I mean, to dinosaurs, right?
Thank you. We'll probably just do one more before we go. Also, we have a couple of questions about the dinosaurs or the T-Rex's arms. They're so small, it must be hard to keep balance when you walk, especially if you try to walk like a T-Rex, it's kind of difficult. If they fell down, how would they get back up? Can you talk a little bit about the T-Rex arms?
Yes, the T-Rex arms are very interesting. They're not necessarily known to having very much of a purpose. In fact, they're small because otherwise they would kind of get in the way. So dinosaurs have such small, or these T-Rexes have such small arms because they would be dangling down. They don't really need them. They have the bite that they have the teeth that they have. They didn't really need the arms. Now, their arms may be okay to grip onto things every once in a while if they're trying to get some food or catch something, but they're not really necessary for much. Now, I would imagine if the dinosaur were to fall, it might not be very easy to get back up. So that would be interesting to see. Unfortunately, we can't see that, but I'm sure they would probably be able to roll around and push themselves up with their tail somehow.
That sounds good. All right, well, thank you so much. I'd like to invite both of you to wave and say goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And Emily, before you close us out, there's one more thing that I want to mention, which is that this whole program was inspired by a friendly organization of ours called Chewonki. So I wanted to give them a shout out. About a month ago, they also did an animal origami program that we loved so much. So we wanted to do something similar. So definitely check them out. They do a ton of natural science education on Facebook. Okay, thanks guys. Have a good day.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Emily. And when we're talking about sharing, I noticed that a few of you had some difficulty following along with your origami. So this video will be available on Facebook and I believe on YouTube as well if you want to go back and watch how to do that again. And we're hoping to have a second video available for that raptor/T-Rex origami as well that you can try at home. So look out for that. And when you do go and try to make your own origami, we want to see it. So please, if you post it online, share it with us and tag #MOS at home so that way we can see it. We would love to know how they go and what kind of customizations you make for them. So that's all we have for today. If you'd like to check out some more programs, please visit the website mos.org/MOS at home or follow us on social media. And if you've enjoyed today's presentation, please visit the website on the screen to support MOS at home. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.